Live.
Perfect. Today is Thursday, September 30th. This is the Financial Audit Committee. If I can have an opening with the roll call of committee members, please.
Mr. Betcher.
Here.
Mr. Don. Ms. Bergen.
Here.
Mr. Hirth.
Here.
And Mr. Lancer is present.
Perfect. May I have a motion to excuse Mr. Donelon?
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Everybody had an opportunity to review the agenda. May I have a motion to set the agenda?
I'll motion that.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right. Nobody registered to address the committee. Minutes from March 22nd, 2021. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll motion it.
I'll second.
All those in favor? All right, moving into the discussion, the financial audit operations, Mr. Hirth and Mr. Lancer.
Yeah, so we've just wrapped up our audit for fiscal years 19 and fiscal year 20. The audit was the prescribed biannual audit as required by ORC and the Auditor of State's office. Well, I've received the draft. I've got the deadline for submission for approving the draft is tonight, actually. So hopefully I can get some buy-in so I can submit that to them this evening before I leave. The audit, overview of the audit, it was a much more sound audit than the previous one. There were only 2 findings as comparison to the last one. I believe that there were 14. So we're moving in the right direction. One of the findings is kind of in speaking with the auditor from Perry and Associates. It's a common finding across municipalities. So I can dive in to the specifics of it. Finding number 1 was financial reporting. There were several items that they cited within financial reporting. The first one was an improper classification of recycling activities. The second was an improper classification of mayor's court activities. These were cited in the previous audit, and given the timeline of when that audit, the final draft of that audit was submitted to us was in 20. So, of course, then it would be identified on the 19 and 20 audit as well. We've implemented changes as required in the previous audit to address those items, but again, because we didn't implement them until fiscal year 20, they were going to show up in this audit as well. So to address those, we had to create 2 separate funds. One's a recycling special revenue fund, and the second one is a special revenue mayor's court fund. So those were taken care of. There were 2 discrepancies in our annual financial statements from 19 and 20. And this is a misunderstanding on my part of what needed to be reported on the financial audit or on the financial statement relating to OPWC loans. Those are the loans we get that we've accepted in order to complete road projects. And the second one was vehicle leases, same deal. The misunderstanding I had was because the work wasn't completed, specifically for the OPWC loans, because that work was ongoing and we hadn't actually been billed for it yet, I didn't include it in the financial statement, although I did discuss it in a paragraph section on the financial statements. What OPWC wants, or what the auditor wants in regards to that, is any disbursement of OPWC, even if it doesn't come directly to the village, needs to be recorded on the financial statement. So what they cited was on the 2 projects, our road engineer received payment from OPWC. It didn't even come through us. They want that recorded because that's part of the overall agreement. The second one was the 2 vehicle leases that we entered into in year 2020. Again, We weren't in possession of either of those vehicles, and we haven't started making payments on it. I did note that in the financial statement itself, but I didn't include the debt as debt incurred in year 20.
Okay.
That's been clarified, and that won't be an issue moving forward. The third item was principal retirement and interest on vehicle payments from the village to vendors. So U.S. Bank, we bought two new cars. And those two new cars, we need to make payments on them. The payment schedules that we receive from the bank don't always reflect what's being invoiced to us. So when you go back in UAN through our financial records, there will be like $1 off throughout the year. That's how they explain it. And she said that that's common across municipalities whenever they make vehicle purchases or when they finance vehicles. So to remedy that, we are going to implement a policy of annual review and updating of our payment schedules for vehicle payments to ensure village financials accurately match the bank payment invoice schedules.
Great.
The final finding under that, finding number 1, was related to county COVID reimbursables. So the village got direct payments from the federal government as part of the CARES Act. We accounted for that properly, even though we had very little guidance. The issue that they found related to a second source is when the county made a portion of their CARES Act funding available to the individual municipalities of the county, and it was just a reimbursable grant. So the village front loads payment, makes payments, and then submits invoices for reimbursement. We had very little guidance on that. We recorded it properly. There's no misuse of those funds, but where we accounted for it in the general fund was in the wrong line. So again, very, very minor things, no issues of significance there. The second finding, which is also what the Perry deemed insignificant, but they had to record it as a finding, was also a finding in the previous audit. They identified that the village is non-compliant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.09, and that states that each subdivision must establish a special fund for each class of revenues derived from a source other than the general property tax. What that means is, what the auditor wants to see is an individual fund for each unique funding source that the village receives.
Yeah.
And where we got dinged, for lack of a better word, is in a street construction maintenance fund. It's fund number 2011-2011. We record permissive motor vehicle license taxes. We account for those within that fund. And what the auditor wants to see is us split out that line item into a separate individual fund. No problem, we will do that as soon as we can, as soon as I get this submitted to. So those are the two findings.
That's it.
That's it.
It's great.
That's it. So
What an improvement.
yes. The entire process was an improvement over last time.
Yeah.
Last time they had a whole team of people in this room blasting through documents. This time it was only one staff member from Perry. She was here for just part of the day. Got it done, got the report to us on time as they said they would, unlike the last time when we had extension after extension after extension after extension. So that's the report. If anyone have any questions, anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If anyone has anything to add, please feel free to do so. But that's the report. If I get a thumbs up from this body, as well as the mayor, a signature from the mayor, My intention is to submit a signed copy of the audit report back to Perry so they can submit it to the Ohio auditor to acknowledge that we're all on the same page.
So a motion to submit the report. Response. I'll motion.
Just because you can. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All those in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Great. Great work to the administration. I know that last audit was, I sat through the debriefing for hours. So I know the work that you guys have put into it. So thank you.
You're welcome. And the previous audit before the 14 was like 100 and some.
Yeah.
So we've
How
been
far we've
great.
come.
So, and to that point, I think it's important to note that the COVID expenditures were also audited in this. So everything that took place last year, we were compliant, other than some of the places where things went.
Sure.
So hopefully that'll be the end of that, because when that money was rolled out to us, the thought was this is going to be a record-keeping nightmare, and apparently we did pretty well taking care of it. So
So when
the
is the
staff
next?
is to be commended.
Yeah.
So Andy's done a fantabulous job.
When will they be back, or the state will come back next time around, correct?
2 years, yes. The next one we thought it would be this time around. We were wrong. It was Perry and Associates again. Well, I was told by the state auditor when I reached out to ask about that, no, the next auditing cycle is the hard audit by the state.
Okay.
So
Is that in a year?
it's every 2 years, so it will be next year, 2022.
All right.
So if I may, can I update you quickly? The banking RFP was on our agenda the last time. Obviously, we completed that project. We renewed our contract with Fifth Third Bank for a 5-year period, I believe it was, at a substantial savings from what we're currently doing with them. And I think we started to realize those savings in our monthly billing. And that really was all of the outstanding stuff from the last meeting.
What was the monthly savings with them?
It was almost $200 a month.
Yeah, I think it was just north of $200 a month. So yeah, we were getting billed $400 some odd dollars, and I believe it's in the neighborhood of $200 after they account for, or after they assume a bunch of
Right.
returns on
Yeah.
investments.
Cool. That's it.
That's
Anything
Any
else?
questions about our audit processes? Just briefly, how are we, what is our procedure and how are we dealing with mayor's court at this point? I know that we're going in and auditing with Denise on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's ongoing. So there's two elements to that. There's one element which, as required by the previous audit, each month I have to do a bank reconciliation of their two mayor's court accounts, Fifth Third accounts. One is the general mayor's court fund, and the other one's the mayor's bonding account. So I have to go through and reconcile that each month, our internal documentation with the banking documentation from Fifth Third. Each month that happens, and I have to record it in a spreadsheet and submit that to the auditor when they do an audit. The second component of that is the cash on hand. They are virtually the only entity in the entire village operation now that still receives cash, because they take payments for tickets and fines
Sure.
and whatnot. Because they do that, it's a best practice to make sure that their records are accurate to what they actually have on hand. That's being done, I believe, monthly by Ms. Carolyn Johnson in the clerk's office. She works with Denise Van Pelt hand in hand each month to ensure that's getting done.
I did it yesterday, so, yeah, to close out the month.
Great.
So no issues have been, to my knowledge, no issues have been identified in that since we've been doing it. So that's a good thing. And And there has been no discrepancies between the documentation they provide me, the documentation I get from the bank, and what's in UAN either, when I do the monthly bank reconciliations. So it's accurate.
Awesome. Any other old business, new business announcements besides the next March meeting, March 28th, 2022? Wow.
So our intent with this was to, actually the auditor asked that we conduct financial audit committees on a regular basis. We were going to do it quarterly. I think quarterly is a little much unless we have something big happening. So the next meeting in March will be after year-end close. It'll be a month after that's all done, so we should be able to talk about processes at that point.
Okay.
Then sometime in the summer, then sometime probably next September.
Great. Works for me. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
I'll second.
Oh, there we go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst, you can
Thank
shut her
you.
down.
And we have ended.
You had to get